Hate it.
So a recorded version of this will be available usually within 24 hours. We're able to get it up on our YouTube. And I am here today with Gerald. Gerald, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, I'd love to, Lisa. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Gerald Buchelt, and I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for Acronis. Acronis, we're a company we've been around since 2003, focusing on initially on backup, and then in the last couple of years, it's like increasingly on security, on remote management, and basically everything that we feel is critical for a successful MSP operation. Our key focus in general is MSPs, and I'm really excited to be here to talk about MSP privacy.
Yeah, we realized after Data Privacy Week that we still had left one stone unturned, talking about privacy and MSPs. Okay, so let's dig into the questions I've got for you. So, from your perspective, what's changed in the last couple of years that makes data privacy a risk, not just for MSPs but also for small businesses? It's not just a compliance or a legal concern.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the various kind of mega breaches is like that have been mounting since it's like 2014. It's like very publicly with Target, later Home Depot, et cetera, et cetera. And every single time that this happened, there have been some releases of people's it's like personal information, their email addresses, which have been then used for spamming and subsequent attacks. There have been many releases that included more sensitive data, including passwords, sometimes even social security numbers. And all of those kind of things, it's like aggregate obviously over time. It's like while you can change your email or you can change passwords, it's like changing a social security number is, as we all know, basically impossible. So from that perspective, it's really, really important to understand that it's like as time progresses and an increasing number of personal information becomes publicly accessible and publicly available in breach collections, et cetera, we're all getting more and more exposed. I think one of the really interesting things that happened was the recent Discord breach, where they used essentially biometric information or driver's license information to authenticate their users in the UK. And what happened was that it took, I believe it was 4 months until that was breached. So it's like we see it's like that at all levels of our online presence, there is an increasing number of personally identifiable information available about almost everybody. It's like who is online, which in this day and age is a lot of people. It's like I don't want to say all clearly, but it's like a lot of people. And with that, it's like the risk and threat profiles like for individual changes. It's like and for small and medium businesses changes. It really starts to become um, something where you have to start to look over your back. So you have to be careful about what kind of data share, how you share it, what kind of passwords you use, how you secure your personal environment. And that obviously erodes the trust that consumers and end users may have towards internet services in general, and then obviously also small and medium businesses and the MSPs that run them. So I think what's really happening is a massive fundamental shift in terms of like how people understand online systems works, how online systems can be not only used for the good, so to speak, but also like have inherent risks and dangers with them that we're not really um, familiar with in a offline kind of a world. It's like if I lose data, it's like if a shop for some reason loses their customer file, that's not necessarily a huge issue. It's like it could affect a couple of people, but it would not be something that is suddenly available or within minutes available halfway around the globe. So from that
Right.
perspective, this kind of scalability changes.
So, what are the most common mistakes that you see MSPs and SMBs making today? I mean, one of the things that my background was actually in marketing. And when digital marketing was a brand new thing, everybody raced to get as much data as we could until we realized the data breaches were a thing. And then you're like, well, geez, maybe we shouldn't be collecting so much of it to begin with, because then we have less to protect. I'm guessing that's one of the mistakes. What are some of the other mistakes that you see in the MSP and SMB space?
Actually, this kind of like data hungry
Mhm.
situations. Like it really reminds me of what somebody at an FTC hearing in 2007 said. It's like data or personal information is starting to become digital cocaine. It's very valuable. It is very
Mhm.
addictive and very dangerous. And I think this
Mhm.
is more true than ever, especially now that all this personal information, all this data, behavioral data, metadata, et cetera, is really starting to become extremely valuable in the context of formulating or it's like training AI models. So it's like
Oh, yeah.
always keep in mind when you think it is like, well, my data is not really that important. It's like if it ends up in some large model and then gets reused in strange ways, which is obviously possible, then it could potentially expose you in ways that you haven't even thought about before. Some of the major issues that I think consumers, MSPs, and small businesses still make is underestimating the relevance and importance of security basics. And I mean, it's like I think as a security community, it's like we've been preaching this for at least 25 years, if not longer, that updating your operating systems, patching unknown vulnerabilities, is like managing accounts and passwords correctly, and making sure you have a good understanding of your overall configuration environment, or what you can how you configure services, and know your assets. Actually, by the way, as well, that's critical. It's like, and all of those kind of things are really still today some of the biggest issues that anybody who's managing IT systems is facing. And I think that is something that cannot be overemphasized.
So basic cyber hygiene, that's what trips people up. It's the simple things. Yeah. It's not the really complex. It's doing the basics well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, we all love to talk about the latest and greatest kind of like breach. It's like the latest and greatest zero day exploit, zero click kind of like takeover of
Mhm.
personal devices. That's exciting. That's interesting. But we've seen time and time again that those types of attacks are rare. It's like they are being used. It's like if you look at the Clop ransomware gang, it's like they've been definitely very aggressively going after 0 days. But a lot of the other, I would say, threat actors of opportunities, like are really exploiting known unpatched vulnerabilities. It's like sometimes dating back years, and are still very successful with that. So from that perspective, it's really important to get those kind of like basics done, just as it's important to get your overall identity governance right. It's like, and that means proper password hygiene, proper account hygiene, etc.
So here's a question that came in live that I really like. How can MSPs differentiate themselves in the market by making data privacy a competitive advantage rather than just a compliance requirement?
Well, by actually living it, right? It's like I think what's really important is like to go above and beyond the. It's like yeah, we do the privacy thing, whether it's the respective sectoral privacy laws that are applicable in the US or state laws, or in the EU. Everybody has some EU customer or EU partner in some form or another. So GDPR is something that we all know about, and I mean January 28th is obviously GDPR related, as we all know. Um, but it's like going beyond these. It's like, yeah, we're doing this kind of thing. It's like really turn this into an active message, right? It's like if you do communicate to your own customers as an MSP that you do not only understand the relevance of privacy regulations and the need to comply with them, but also then make the point that it's like, hey, it's like you don't want to be the next kind of business that is in some way or another featured in a major public trade publication or above the fold of one of the dailies. It's like because you have lost so and so much data, it becomes something that people start to think about. It's like we are unfortunately quite used to seeing those kind of like large breaches or even smaller breaches, like on an almost daily basis at this point in time. Still, it's like anyone who has gone through any type of security incident with a potential of external exposure knows how unbelievably stressful these kind of times can be. And I think it's like if an MSP can really communicate to the customers, we are focusing on this as part of our overall strategy, like to ensure that we specifically look at your practices and then also provide some guidance to customer because customers do not necessarily always know what's right and what's wrong, right? So it's like go beyond these, like, hey, it's like I got you covered with this checklist and go really into, hey, maybe here are some good practices that you want to think about in terms of like how you want to restructure your business process, and maybe even in terms of like what kind of data you actually want to collect. Like you were saying before, it's like we used to collect everything and anything. Now it's like we want to be a lot more careful, and I think that's where MSPs can play a really good.
Um, this question is kind of related, I think, as you were talking about the questions that you get from clients and the advice that you try to give them. Um, who owns what? Like who owns privacy? So as MSPs are managing more and more systems and more data on behalf of their clients, I think there's probably some misunderstandings about who owns the data and then who owns protecting it, who owns privacy, and how do those misunderstandings lead to potential exposure for both sides, the MSP and their customer.
Yeah, I think what we've seen is that the model that was originally promoted by the GDPR, which looks at data subjects and processors and controllers, is really the one that has been taken a life on its own. It's like across multiple different regions and multiple different regulatory regimes. In that model, it's like it's basically the data subject that is ultimately the sovereign over their own kind of like data from a privacy perspective. They decide who to share this with, and they decide what kind of data can be what can be done with that data. Obviously, there's different kinds of rights. It's like some of them go in as far as the right to be forgotten, which is very popular or from the GDPR and has been also adopted in some other regulations,
CCPA,
including the
right?
US.
Yeah. Mhm.
CPA, exactly. So that's obviously challenging, right? It's like for anyone who's collecting data, it's like to go into large databases or into large environments and potentially having to delete this. But the data subject is ultimately the owner of their own data. The controller is the one who actually collects the data for the purpose of providing a service, writing a invoice, or working with other parties in order to deliver the service that they need. And it's like it's the relationship between the subject on the one side and the controller on the other side that really governs the vast majority of what's going on. For in the MSP and small and medium business kind of space, it's typically the business, the small themselves, who are the controllers. They're ultimately interacting with their end customers. They're ultimately interacting with their it's like data subjects essentially, and are responsible for the kind of data they collect. It's like if I run a shop, it's like and I sell stuff, and it's like for that purpose, it's like I built marketing lists. Then I need to make sure that the people that I built the marketing lists about have actually agreed to be on that. It's like, and we all seen this. It's like we've seen the cookie directives and the wonderful cookie banners that are popping up like everywhere at this point in time. That is really owed to the fact that the controller is ultimately responsible for this. They have to make sure that they get the agreement from the people that are interacting with their services to share their data and then need to record that. The MSP plays more of a role, most of the times, a role of a processor. So it's like a lot of things happen on systems owned by the MSP, but they're doing this on behalf of the data controller, on behalf of their customers, the small and medium businesses. So it's like they have to enter relationships with those customers in order to make sure that they can process the data on their behalf. And that's the typical kind of scenario. CCPA, GDPR, and other regulations is like really mirror that across the board.
So another question for you from the audience. How do you promote or enforce privacy by design in the software development lifecycle? And do you have any examples of that?
Oh, it's like it's so easy, right? It's like you just tell the developers and product managers you have to be careful, and then they will do that.
Fighting for privacy and security. Yeah, no.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's challenging because it's like sometimes you don't necessarily even know exactly what kind of privacy, what kind of personal data you may collect in certain situations if you're not paying attention to this. I've always liked the idea of basically looking at any kind of privacy control the same way I would look at security controls. Security controls, I need to encrypt something. Security controls, I need to authenticate to certain servers. Privacy controls, I need to make sure that I get permission from the users, like at the time they enter the data, and, or can do other things. So it's like if you map the various kinds of privacy obligations back to controls that can be shared with engineers, you end up being in a situation where you have one set of requirements that you really set out for them to work through. It's like it's not, oh, there's a security control, oh, there's a AI related control, oh, there's a compliance control that comes from somewhere else, there's a privacy control, and all of them are disparate. It's like really try to make sure that you develop one process that defines how all those kind of like regulatory and otherwise arising obligations are being cast into a control framework, and then it's like managed the same way. That makes it a lot easier from the perspective of managing completeness, and it also reduces the amount of processes that you need to implement.
Makes sense. You made it sound so easy, Jerry.
Oh,
Another
so
question from the audience. What tools or frameworks do you recommend for MSPs to automate privacy compliance monitoring across their client portfolio? I
wow.
don't know that you want to talk about like specific tools, but framework wise or recommendations?
I think it really depends a little bit. It's like what kind of privacy regime you're under, right? It's like if you're operating in a healthcare related kind of like space, it's like the
Mhm.
framework is given to you. It's like you will sign a BAA with whoever is the covered entity, and it's like through that, it's like you inherit the kind of like obligations that come from the HIPAA privacy rule and security rules, and you have to implement them. If you are just doing some online business, the amount of privacy requirements you have are probably relatively simple. It's like CCPA is obviously one of those that you need to do. If you have international customers, like I said, it's like EU usually comes into the mix pretty quickly. But it's like at the end of the day, it's like there's a couple of fundamental principles that you always have to uphold. And it's like there are various kind of like publications like the IAPP or other organizations that offer those kind of like frameworks. What seems to be sensible also there is to take a look at privacy compliance managers. It's like there are a bunch of them out there. It's like I'm not going to say any particular ones because I don't have a relationship with them. But if you
Mhm.
look around the various kind of like whatever trust or similar named companies, it's like you'll find that there's some good frameworks out there that will allow you to easily implement cookie banners. It's like map your data, help you map data flows and manage them that way. And it's like that can be particularly useful. I think what's sometimes underestimated is that privacy implies security. It's like if you have a wonderful privacy environment and no security, it's like you will be spilling data very quickly. So the compliance, the security compliance is an integral part of the overall privacy framework as well. It's like, and that is something that as a CISO, I have to emphasize. Now, as like a Cronus, we're doing this in a nice kind of a way because we just have a nice compliance manager that automates a lot of those. And you'll find that obviously across other companies.
Yeah, if it's not private, it's by or not secure, it's by definition also not private, right? Um, let's talk a little bit about incident response. When a data privacy incident occurs, what decisions in the first 24 to 48 hours have the biggest impact on trust between the MSP and their clients?
I would say a sense of urgency and transparency are absolute key. It's like that in that kind of like early phase. Typically is like it takes a little while to understand whether you even have a privacy breach or a
Mhm.
security breach as well. I mean, you may
Right.
see some indications in your log files. You may get a notice from your MSP as a customer that something may have happened, but you really don't understand whether you're affected or not. So it becomes, in my mind, very important to work closely with the legal team or your legal advisors to ask them for assistance in terms of like determining when did we actually learn about having a privacy incident? Because that is a
Mhm.
very important
That's
point in
material.
time.
Mhm.
Because then the clock starts running in terms of notification, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like having that fully understood. It's like how you react to incoming messages that may indicate some event or maybe an incident or not, but we really don't know, is important because you don't want some engineer to determine, hey, we got a breach, right? It's like
No,
they may
it's a
not know.
legal
It's like
consideration more than a,
exactly.
yeah, I know security professionals get really tempted to say, the sky is, something horrific happened, but
Yeah,
it's really, you really want your legal counsel making that decision of
100%. And for
the,
that,
yeah,
totally agree. It's like for that you need to understand what is actually at risk. It's like what is the likelihood or the confidence that you have that something was actually lost. It's like if you have very low confidence that a lot of data was lost, it doesn't necessarily make sense to declare that incident at that point in time. You want to have better
right.
confidence. So it's an important process, and I think that's really a critical piece prior even to those 48 hours, right? It's like that's determining when the 48 hours start. It's like that's the first step. Once you know that you're in a bad situation, it's like you obviously have to start thinking about is like how do you deal with that? And I think one of the key elements there is like to have as much as possible a pre-canned kind of like approach in terms of like
Holding
putting some
statements.
exactly.
I
You
think
want to
small
have a hold.
businesses and MSPs don't necessarily, big companies with PR departments and crisis communications teams think about those things, but I don't think smaller customers or businesses always think about having those holding statements because you're
Yeah,
going to get
I think
questions.
that's And I would say that's exactly it's like one of those kind of like situations where an MSP can really add significant value to their customers' operations by saying it's like, hey, it's like we have thought about this before. It's like we have a canned incident response process that you
Mhm.
can implement as a template, Mr. or Mrs. Customer. We are operating in this kind of a way. It's like by the time you will get some form of notification from us, you can just open page 7 of the template and you'll find a templated holding statement for your own customers in there. And I think that is
Right.
really that kind of like first step of transparency, saying is like, dear world, it's like we've seen something potentially terrible happen on our systems. We're investigating. We don't have all the data at this point in time. Everyone understands that you can't have like a full incident report after 48 hours, but it's like having the guts and going out and saying like we discovered in the last 24 hours that something may have happened to our systems and may affect your data is I think critical in this kind of like situation.
Yeah, I think that would be a big value add for an MSP to have those kinds of things available for their customers. Yeah, absolutely. How can MSPs leverage integrated cyber protection capabilities to build stronger client trust around data handling and privacy? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but let's talk about it some more. Whoops, you're still on
Help me
mute.
separate that. Help me
There we go.
separate that piece by how, Lisa, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. You're back.
Okay, sorry. So it's like, can you help me go through that question step by step? Because I think it
Yeah,
was a complicated one.
it's a big one. Yeah. How can MSPs leverage integrated cyber protection capabilities to build stronger client trust around data handling and privacy? So I think we're back to this connection between cyber and privacy that you talked about before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like what I was saying before is like there is no real privacy without security. So
Mhm.
it's like if you cannot secure your environment, if you cannot secure your databases, if you cannot secure your applications, and your service, you end up in a position where you're extremely exposed from a privacy incident perspective. And I think that having this kind of like integrated environment that is not a complicated one, but is like ultimately relies on hopefully a small number of platforms that are well integrated, keeps things simple. And again, it's like any kind of like incident or emergency situation where you have to deal with 27 different systems, unless you have the capacity and the knowledge inside the company to really deal with those kind of like complex environments, you're much better off having integrated stacks. It's like if you have to deal with one, two, or three stacks, it's like it's much easier to go through this and just like start your own investigative processes. Start to look into what you need to find in order to investigate. But even before that, it's like before the incident, secure the environment. I think that's a huge value add to MSPs. At the end of the day, it's like a lot of them it's like are not necessarily giant operations with thousands of employees, but are
Mhm.
smaller kind of like companies who are serving their customers in a particular market, whether it's regional or vertical. and it's like people don't have the amount of resources that a large enterprise, like a huge financial or a government entity would have. So having this kind of like integrated environment is like that really allows customers, MSPs, to focus on their ability to deliver the services while at the same time staying secure, creates a more trustworthy environment than a best of breed kind of approach. And that's how I would look at this.
Okay. Um, so one of the questions that's come in from the audience is very similar to one of the prepared questions that we have. So I'll ask it the way he asks it. With evolving privacy regulations globally, and I would say like not just GDPR, CCPA, other things happening in other states, like even within the US, how can MSPs stay ahead of compliance requirements across different jurisdictions? Very similar to the question we had, which was what's a realistic way for MSPs to approach data privacy without being compliance experts, right? Like how do you keep track of everything that's happening? And really, this audience member is asking, how do you stay ahead of it? I mean, I know at large corporations, what I'll often hear is, well, we're just going to tune our program to the most rigorous compliance. But does that make sense for an MSP, or what do you think?
Well, it sure depends on the market that you're operating in. It's like I think one of the a part of the question is really around just like staying on top of the regulatory landscape. Regulations change. There seems to be a new law coming out every couple of weeks in some corner of the world, and every regulator seems to be hell bent on making sure that their regulation is even more strict than the other ones before, just to show it everybody else. Which is obviously not really helpful. It's like I think understanding your customer base is really the first step. It's like if you're dealing generally with small internet retailers, unregulated industries in the US, your regulatory landscape is going to be look very different from one that deals heavily in a regulated industry like finance or healthcare or whatever, or deals on an international basis. And I think it's like really fully understanding your own customer base is the first step towards understanding what regulatory landscape is relevant for that customer base. That may require some legal consulting. It's like I would not recommend just going out saying like, yeah, I read something in one of those journals, and it's like I'm pretty sure it's like it could apply to us, but we'll just see. It's like this. I'll ask ChatGPT. It's like I get a privacy policy. That's going to be awesome. That's probably not a wise approach, at
Mhm.
least at this as of this date. So God, who knows what's going to happen? It's like a couple of weeks or months down the road. But it's like I would say it's like having some form of legal advice when it comes to privacy as a legal concept is important. Um, once you know what is actually applicable, it's like like you said, it's like you have to think about it. It's like how much do I really want to implement of that? It's like is everything really absolutely required or not? It's like am I really operating a business that has to implement every single nook and cranny that from say HIPAA? Well, it's like if you're selling I don't know, it's like pencils to hospitals. It's like you may it's like you're probably not going to be covered by a BAA. It's like, but it's like you never know. It's like there could be standard contracting practices that are relevant. So from that perspective, you have to really think about it. It's like what do I actually have to implement? It's like what do my crown jewels look like? What is affected by the respective compliance or not? And again, it's like I think that's where MSPs that are focusing on specific um,
Sectors or
regions
yeah.
or,
Hmm.
or, or verticals can come in and be extremely helpful advisors and really show off and versus like their own competition as experts in that particular field. And I think that's also something we're seeing across the board.
Yeah, that makes sense. A couple of questions here about AI and ML. No webinar would be complete without questions about AI. Um, so from the audience, how is AI and ML, how are those impacting data privacy responsibilities for MSPs? Very broad
So,
question.
uh, excellent question. I would say it's like in ways very similar to how it affects everyone who's using those types of services. At the end of the day, it's like if you're interacting with a generative AI system with a chat bot or whatever, or deploying your own kind of like models internally, you have to think about this in many ways. as primarily as like another SaaS service that you would integrate into your environment, right? It's like if you get your email from Google or Microsoft, you're submitting a lot of very sensitive data, a lot of PII into those kind of like systems today. And nobody's asking anymore, is like, is this okay from a privacy perspective or not? We all understand it's like there's contracting, there's potentially data protection agreements that are available. And in many ways, this is very similar to AI. It's like as long as you stay in within an enterprise kind of a framework, right? So it's like the key thing here is like as long as you're staying in there. It's like if you really buy AI-enabled services or integrate your own kind of like generative AI capabilities into your operating platform as an MSP or as an end customer, you end up being in a situation where you have to basically follow the same kind of like rules that you would do around deploying a SaaS service. You're submitting data to them. It's like you want to make sure that they're not that they're doing the right things for them. So it's like you put the right contractual restriction around them and try to monitor this in meaningful ways, either through compliance documentation like SOC 2, or it's like in the ISO world, it's like the 42001 is now one of the more popular ones that is coming out, the AI management systems. But it's like those are fairly standard practices. I think where it becomes or can become dicey is like if you're building systems or you have employees that are dealing with environments that are not necessarily is like captured by enterprise contracts. So it's like if you're allowing your employees to write emails or create presentations or documents like with their own personal subscriptions, or worse, even the freebie subscriptions, you end up in a situation where the governing contracts for that type of interaction are really the T's and C, the platform T's and C's of those kind of services, and they often imply that they have at least some form of perpetual license to the data that you submit, meaning you give away the data, which is something that you promised your customers not to do. So it's like, and that's really where the rubber hits the road. So I would say that it's like if you think this through just the same way you would think through is like setting up a file sharing service, an email service, or any other collaboration tool, and it's like put the same kind of level of scrutiny behind that, um, you should be okay. It's like
It's a really good way
they're
to think
the
about it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a really good
like
way to
it
think about it.
absolutely. It's like if you allow your employees to bring your own AI, it's like you may not be okay.
One of the things we learn in our O Behave report every year, we've asked the last 2 years, we've asked questions about whether or not employees are getting training. That's the other thing, is that most companies are not training their employees on what's acceptable use of AI and what isn't. So that's the next piece, is when you take that approach, once you figure out what's going to be acceptable, I'm sure you've told everybody, and they've taken some training about it. Um, let's see.
And
So
I
here,
would go, I would go probably go even go a step further. It's like figure out yourself first what actually is acceptable and not. Because
right.
often enough, there's not necessarily a good understanding about is like what can we allow, what can we not allow. So the example I was bringing earlier is like bring your own AI may not be appropriate to deal with patient data or it's like account records from a
Mhm.
CPA. But at the same time, it's like you're creating a logo for your own firm may be completely okay, right?
Right.
So really understanding is like what kind of data can be submitted or must not be submitted to those kind of public services is, I think, part of the overall assessment. Formulate the right guidelines, policies, whatever you want to call them, and then share them correctly with your own employees.
So as long as we're on the topic of AI, what about AI powered security and automation tools? Um, any uh, any considerations there about how to what the privacy considerations are of the tools the MSPs might be using?
Um, Again, it's like I would say, let's like look into what your vendors are giving you, right? It's like at the end of the day, it's like there's every vendor that I'm aware of is like has been to some extent or another has like been trying to drive into the AI market,
Sure.
or is like AI enablement, I should rather say. And we've been doing this now for quite a while at Acronis, and we've been very careful. It's like thinking about it's like what is appropriate, what can we actually integrate, and how would we integrate this in a way that is consistent with our obligations to our customers. You want to make sure that the vendors you rely on is like are actually very actively thinking about this. It's like if you just go out and it's like buy some form of a service, it's like whether it's through an MSP or directly or what have you, you could have end up in a situation where this was not well thought out, right? It's like where there are some underlying, it's like terms that would allow the provider of of a particular GenAI service or so to reuse the data that gets submitted to them. And unfortunately, there's a lot of there's a lot of legal details that you need to go through in order to fully have a full understanding. I think what really is important there is like have to have a good level of trust to your vendor and that they are doing the right thing, and just really evaluate them from that perspective and see that they're when you ask them, it's like that they actually have answers and that those answers are consistent with what you would be expecting to find.
Many MSPs worry that privacy requirements add operational complexity. We've talked a little bit about this. How can modern cyber protection platforms help simplify privacy and security management in day-to-day operations?
Yeah, I would say it's like I was coming back to best of breed. It's like so it's like my own, as you know, it's like my own background is like I've been working a lot in enterprises, a lot of B2B kind of stuff, and you usually have quite a few resources in order to see is like what the most appropriate kind of tooling is that you can actually deploy. That's not necessarily true for MSPs, right? It's like some
Right.
larger MSPs, they operate just like large enterprises, but at the same time, there's also scalability aspect that is not to be underestimated. It's like if you have to manage, if you have hundreds or thousands of customers and they're all living in their separate tenants, it's like you don't want to have a custom solution for every single one of them. You want to make sure that you can standardize as much across the board as possible. And I think that's true in general. It's like if you have simple tools that can that are built to scale across those types of environment, you're going to be much better off versus like having to build custom solutions for every single one of your customers. Doesn't mean that there may be some customers where you do have to do some customization, of course. It's like especially if you want to go into separate markets or you have like a special requirements that are coming in that you want to serve. But at the same time, it's like it's always easier. It's like even in enterprises to have one or two integrated stacks. You can train your staff against that. You can make sure that they fully understand what's going on, and then keep monitoring security, privacy, whatever.
If the audience has any questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A or any comments. You can leave those in the chat. Um, Here we go. How does having backup and security in a single platform help MSPs respond faster and more efficiently to privacy incidents?
Like I was saying, it's like it's
Mhm.
in any kind of incident scenario, it's like every minute counts, right? It's like you need to make sure is that you can respond quickly. It's like if you do see some, if you finally come to the conclusion that what's actually happening in your environment is potentially something that is would constitute a breach or constitute a security incident of a major side, you have to react quickly. It's like in if you need like four different people to operate the environment that you're in, it's like one to do the backup, the other one or the backup validation and then restores, like another one to operate your endpoint protection, and then a third one is like to go through the logs. It can be sometimes daunting to get all those people on a call on a Saturday night at 10:30. It's like when those things tend to be more common, unfortunately, than a Monday morning at 10. So it's like having a platform that is integrated and pre-automated in many kind of ways really helps you to be able to rely on fewer resources. And that makes you faster in those kind of like incidents. If you only have like one or two people that you need in order to basically isolate systems, it's like make sure that things don't spread any further, put down additional controls, start an maybe even start an investigation through an MDR service or so that comes with the platform, and then it's like at the same time it's like trigger the disaster recovery from a prior backup. And you can do this with one or two technicians. That's much more efficient than having to do this with four or five. And I think that's where the minutes and hours count, and that's where the response time, especially once the clock has started to tick, becomes critical.
What privacy by design principles should MSPs embed into their service delivery models from the outset?
Um, I mean, it sounds cliche or a little bit blasé, I guess, but just follow applicable laws, right? It's like if you it's like you want to make sure that whatever is applicable to your environment, to your customers, you thought about before. It's like know your customer space, and I think that's critical. Beyond those kind of like basic principles of really meeting customer requirements, I think one of the areas you want to focus on is to see is like how you can support data minimization. The less sensitive data you have, the less things you need to worry about. Going back a little bit back to the
Mhm.
digital cocaine, it's like you want to have just enough medicine to be able to do what you need to do, and not inordinate amounts of drugs
Just
sitting
don't
around that you
overdose. Yeah.
get high on.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like data minimization, I think, is like in and by itself is probably one of the best things. And it's like you were saying that earlier yourself, right? It's like from a marketeer's perspective, this is a very sad moment. From an AI or data scientist perspective, it's a sad moment to realize that we don't want to keep data, but
Right.
it is healthier for your environment. And I think
Yeah.
that is meet your requirements plus minimize the data that you need to
Mhm.
work with. Like it's probably going to be a huge step.
So Joseph has a question. Today, many associates access company databases when they're off site. They're using PCs, phones, printers. I assume those are company devices. He doesn't say in the question. What are good practices for keeping the data safe? We also had a kind of related question about BYOD, but let's assume those are company devices.
Yeah, well, it's like even for BYOD devices, like understand it's like how you well, it's like yeah, you have to develop a good management scheme for that. For company devices, you can obviously have in most situations a fairly far-reaching controls. Like you can demand certain software to be installed. You can demand certain configurations. You can lock people out of doing certain things and encrypt data at rest. It's like make sure that the kind of connections are always encrypted that are going back to the services. Install things like CASBs or application controls that limit the kind of services those devices can talk to, or the kind of applications that can be installed on those devices. I think that kind of locking down the environment for corporate devices is relatively easy. It's like that can be done today. Again, it's like this is where I think a an MSP can provide tremendous amounts of services to end customers by going in and it's like having a predefined kind of like standard laptop configuration that they would suggest to their customers to be deployed in their tenants. Like you want to deploy some EDR. You want to make sure you deploy some form of application control. You want to have some remote management agent that allows you to make changes as you go forward. You want to make sure you patch. It's like I was saying at the very beginning. It's like patching and vulnerability managing is still so important. So all of that can be done fairly efficiently. It's like there are platforms on the market that do this in one stack. It's like I could suggest a company right now, it's like which is Acronis, but it's like there are obviously others out there as well. But it's like that's actually one of the reasons why we have built the platform in an integrated kind of a way, because those are some of the key requirements that we see MSPs and their end customers really having across the board. It's like having this in a simply accessible kind of way, so you don't have to have trained technicians for like 3 or 4 different software stacks. For BYOD, I think it's a little bit more it's a little bit different. It's like you
A little more
need
nuanced. Yeah.
mobile device management,
Mhm.
right? In a great world, it's like you would really go down to mobile application management, right? So instead of like managing the entire device and having to wipe an entire device if it gets lost or the employee leaves the company or whatever, you really focus on
People tend
providing
not
it's
to
like a
like
provision.
that. Yeah.
No, no, it's like I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that at all, right? It's like, but it's like if I can really have a suite of products from my say collaboration vendor, collaboration suite vendor that can be configured in a fairly containerized kind of a way, I can wipe those. It's like I can lock down those, and as such, then really um, leverage the BYOD devices without sacrificing security.
Looking ahead, what's one emerging privacy risk or shift MSPs and SMBs should be preparing for now that probably isn't quite yet on their radar? This is your
Oh
crystal
boy,
ball question, Jerry.
crystal ball for 2026. It's like,
Yep, exactly. What's coming
I
next? More state regulation, I would think.
that's I don't need a crystal ball for that. It's
That's
like
a
that's
given.
a given.
Yeah.
That's a total given, right? I think what's going to be very interesting to see is like in how far consumer demand is going to change as we start to see more data being available, more data
So will the
about.
privacy versus convenience trade-off will people start to
I
consider that?
think
Is that what you think?
I think we're seeing it in bits and pieces already. It's like I mean, it's like D Discord has said it's like they really want to go now all the way in. It's like with biometrics and driver's license, or it's like identity document scans and what have you. And there's a considerable pushback that people are starting to mount. Not necessarily yet across the wide spectrum, but it's like as those kind of like breaches become more and more pertinent and actually more impactful. It's like losing a password to some blog. It's like or some social network that you barely used or that you have used 10 years ago and just don't really care about today. It's like that's annoying in the worst of cases, but it's like losing or it's like knowing that your passport page or your identity document page is out there. It's like for the highest bidder. It gives you a totally different kind of level of concern. So I think it's like as we start to see more of those kind of breaches and the ability to effectively correlate them, because it's like so far it's like we have huge dumps of data, but it's like the ability to stitch together out of those dumps an individual profile is still fairly cumbersome. With machine learning and with generative AI systems, that will get easier. It's like if you feed a malicious AI those kind of like data dumps and you start to ask it to stitch together the profiles, you can get fairly comprehensive dossiers about people in no time. And I think that is going to be something that we will see very, very soon if it's not already happening. And that'll change, from my perspective, eventually behavior. It's like on expectations from a privacy perspective. Data minimization is really going to be your friend. It's like in order to address some of those things.
Probably one of our last questions here, unless anybody's got any others you want to add to the chat. What trends do you see shaping the data privacy landscape for MSPs over the next 2 to 3 years? So we're going to take the crystal ball out a couple of years further.
That's a really rough question, Ajay. It's like because honestly, it's like I think all of us who are now really in the midst of what's going on the in terms of like agentic AI, it's like the march from simple models to complex agentic frameworks right now. I'm looking at it's like every week seems to be it feels like a year in terms of the kind
Whole
of
new
things
world.
that are
Yeah.
happening. Yeah, exactly. It's like just 4 weeks ago. It's like nobody, or it's like only a very small number of people knew what Claudebot or Moltbot or OpenClaw or whatever they call themselves in these days actually is. The privacy implications of those kind of like self-installed systems
It's
that are
terrifying.
supposed to be very convenient
Yeah.
can be very terrifying. It's like those
Mm.
people that have lost like thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars due to misconfigurations or hacks will attest to that. What the world will bring in 2 to 3 years, I'm blanking. It's like I want to be honest as I'd say. It's like I don't know. It's like I think a lot of the things that we're seeing today are going to be continuing the same kind of like things like regulatory compliance, which will be significantly more strict around particularly the intersection of personal data and AI. It's like we already see the AI Act in Europe playing out. I'm expecting more of that type of regulation to come up over the next 2 years as we see more breaches and more stitching. So it's like I would expect a lot more of that. I would expect, like I said, it's like a lot more consumer awareness, not necessarily for all consumers. I think there may be different cohorts of users, the privacy aficionados and those that still don't care. It's like that may very well be the case. And I think it's like small businesses will have to adjust to that, and as such, it's like the MSPs being able to offer appropriate services will have to provide new business models for those. for those customers.
The real last question. What can consumers do, since you brought up Discord, what can consumers do to demand security from services like Discord that seek to collect more personal data without promising security?
Not use them.
Yeah, I was going to say, pretty much not use them. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
your
like
choice,
at the end
right?
of the day, it's like if you want to use a particular, if you want to use a particular service, these kind of services are essentially it's like determined defining the terms and the conditions
Mhm.
of using the services, using their platforms. If you want to use them, it's like then you have to see it's like whether your risk appetite and tolerance fits that kind of model. And if it doesn't, then don't use them. I mean, that's ultimately
Right,
what it comes down
right.
to. At the end of the day, it's
Yep.
like we're all voting with our wallets. So I was like, if people are getting too egregious with regards to
Or our
their demand,
data.
yeah,
Our wallets or our
I think
data. Yeah, because our data
yeah,
has all
yeah,
that
both.
value. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Gerald. Sorry we
Absolutely, yeah.
got started a few minutes late. Again, this recorded webinar will be available on our YouTube probably in the next 24 hours. We seek to get those out there pretty quickly. Gerald, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
They'll find me on LinkedIn pretty quickly.
LinkedIn.
It's like I'm
Okay.
absolutely sure, and it's like from there, it's like you can pretty quickly get to my corporate email address as well. So I was like, I'd be more than happy to assist and help.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for hanging
Thank
with
you.
us. Thank you, Gerald.
Absolutely.
And
Thanks for the opportunity.
have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
See you later. Thank you. Bye.